Thank you very much, Veronica. I appreciate the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gary Adams, and I am the new Dean of Adult Education for the Workforce and Economic Development Division for the State Chancellor's Office of the California Community Colleges. In community college in our state, non-credit instruction includes an array of no-cost courses to students to help them reach their personal, academic, and professional goals. There are 10 non-credit categories established to classify a non-credit course in accordance with its primary objective. These categories of non-credit courses are eligible for state apportionment in accordance with California education law. There are over 35 community colleges out of 116 currently in the system offering non-credit instruction for adults. And we plan over the next 5 years to expand this instruction as community college curricula undergo new changes to better address employer training needs, become more agile and responsive in the education and training marketplace, and evolve instruction to include innovations like competency-based education while expanding upon new and traditional work-based opportunities as defined career pathways for our students. Now I want to turn this over to my good colleague, Dr. Carolyn Zachary, from our close partners in the adult education space, the California Department of Education. Carolyn?
Thank you, Gary. And I want to welcome everyone to this year's Directors event. And I do appreciate how it is spread out across the week. And I know that many of us over the last 18 months know what Zoom fatigue is. And so by being able to come into this space for 90 minutes to a couple hours and then move on to something else, I think is really a great way to do this event. So so thank you for being here. Thank you for attending. We're going to go through a slide deck. We probably won't keep you all 90 minutes today. So depends on how many questions y'all have. So, all right. So thank you again for being here. And if we want to go to the next slide, Veronica. So we're going to do some polls. We want you to do some interactions here. We're going to talk about, first we're going to talk about enrollment. And, we're into the new year. And how's your enrollment looking this year? So if you can launch the poll, Veronica. So select the one that's best describing what the enrollment in what you've heard from your consortium members, or even in just your own agency. And Veronica, you let me know when most people have answered.
Okay, so right now we are at about 57%, and it's still going up. Responses are still coming in.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we're moving in closer to 75% response.
So Eileen said it's hard to answer because it's different for each member. So if you could average, Eileen, that would be great.
Okay, it looks like it may be slowing down a little bit. We're at 76% who have responded.
All right, let's give it just another 10 seconds. You have 10 seconds to make a choice. Remember, we're not going to evaluate you on this.
All right.
All
No.
right, good. Why don't you go ahead and share what it looks like. All right, so we're still down. It looks like the majority of you are still down 25%. That's sad to hear that we're still seeing that decline. And I'm wondering if in the chat you could put in which, because I can't remember what the next slide is. Enrollment. Okay, yeah, good. This is what I was going to ask. In the chat, if you could put down why you think in your consortia, what you're hearing, why students are staying away from school, why they're not enrolling. Okay, Christy says up at Ukiah, childcare, a COVID case rate in our community. Okay. The Delta variant, that seems to be a big issue. Vaccine mandates. I think I need to make my chat bigger so I can read these. Employment readily available. That's right. And employers are training them. That's interesting, Eric. Students who want to come back in person, they're not yet comfortable coming back in. They don't know that you're open. Students moved away. Fear, yeah. So a lot of it is that Delta variant. And that business partners are running their own training programs. So a couple of people have said that. So those of you that have said that some of your business partners are running their own training programs, could you put in the chat what kind of training programs they're running? I'm just curious. I hadn't heard that. So I'm curious about that information. Let's see who said that. Maybe I can. So let's see, could we have Uta come off of mute and let us know what business partners, what kind of programs they're running?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I just added it to the chat. It's focused on
Okay,
construction, electricians, for example, welding, big time. And then also a few smaller business partners are doing in-house training for office professionals.
oh, got it. So it's more on the CTE, the workforce training side, not
Yes.
Not high school equivalency or any of our big categories of adult ed.
Well, CTE is a big one too, but
It
yeah.
is. It certainly is a big one.
Our libraries have stepped in, I think, more noticeably with high school diploma programs. That's the other one.
Okay, got it. And Eric, is that similar in your area?
Yeah, our CTE is down, and when you look at what's happening with local employers, you know, if I get on with a contractor, if I'm showing up to work, he or she's happy to train me.
Okay.
Same thing with, like, we launched the in-home healthcare aid class, and we've had little interest in it, and most of the employers in the area do training in-house as well right now. So
Okay. Great. Thank you very much. Next slide, Veronica. So obviously it sounds like CTE is one of the biggest areas. So once you, but not, some of you don't have huge CTE programs. So you could let us know in your program area, which programs, which, I guess it's a single choice though, were most affected by the pandemic. So pick one. You should be able to do it in the poll. And yes, the colleges do have very big CTE programs. That is true. Thanks, Kelly.
So we are about 70%
All
response.
right. All right, we'll give it 5 more seconds. Jody, that's a really great comment about local employers and the high needs and how they're able to really, where was your comment there? So they're proactive in doing on-the-job training. So, all right, so ESL and CTE, and I can see a few comments in the chat that it's been really the low level ESL that we've seen a lot of significantly affected. And I think that goes back to the literacy issues and the comfort level in being able to navigate online programming, online classes. So, so thanks for filling that out. The next question or the next slide, Veronica. All right, so I just wanted to talk quickly about funding, and you should have all by now, by September 20th, you should have all received July and August's CAEP apportionment, and you should be receiving your September apportionment any day now. So it was sent, the September apportionment was sent to the state controller's office in early September. And so I'm hoping that you've all been receiving your money. We had a new process this year, and that way to be able to get the funding out a lot earlier. So if you have not received your July and August apportionment, please send me or send Gary and me an email and let us know that you haven't received that so we can look into it. All right. But good news on that front, right? Much earlier than in past years. So next slide, please. Okay, so I want to know what you're seeing as the most critical support services that your students have. So if you could answer this poll, what are the most critical support services? Is it orientation, counseling, transition, referrals to other agencies, supportive services such as food and childcare? I've seen childcare listed several times, immigration services as some options. Veronica, how are we doing?
So we're at about 60%,
Okay,
70% now.
okay. Well, let's go 5 more seconds.
Oh, 725.
Okay, Veronica, why don't you close the poll?
Okay.
And let's see what we have. Based on the chat, I was expecting to see supportive services up there pretty high. So supportive services, orientation, transition services, all very important. Okay, so next slide. All right, so all of this is really important information that you need as a consortium to look at what you're going to be, to look at your 3-year planning, right? And so you want to know what the needs of your students are, what the needs of your employers are, certainly in your area. And knowing that you're doing this 3-year planning still in pandemic mode, how are your agencies going to be thinking about offering classes to students moving forward? And that should also be, that's all part of this whole idea of 3-year planning. And so in the chat, give a couple, here's a show of hands. Actually, the first one is, are you ready to start working on your 3-year plan? So raise your hand if you're ready to start. Or thumbs up or applause, whatever you're comfortable with. So it looks like a lot of you are ready. I think we've done some good prep work on this. This isn't the first time you're doing this 3-year plan. So many of you are comfortable. Some of you have already started because we had the documents out to you to use. So the next question is, if we ask consortia and members to set goals and targets for the next 3 years, where do you foresee some stumbling blocks? So what might be some of those areas that get in the way of some setting goals and targets? You want to put that in the chat? Be curious to see what some of those are. Okay, John says governance structure for them. They're just being exhausted, multiple retirements, right? You have to do a lot of onboarding, funding, having common definitions, especially in data. That's a good point, Emma. Interruption, let's see, they're going too fast. New members, check plus to onboarding. John says check plus to onboarding. Some of these are going really fast. COVID has really changed the way you look at your programs. Finding LMI in very rural areas where the workforce board doesn't drill down to the community served. Yeah, that's challenging, Mitch. Data. Programs maybe just going to do what they've done before, not considering a new reality and the needs of students. Very interesting comment. Data listed a couple times, expanding base of work groups, digital access. Right, okay, so now that you've named some of your stumbling blocks, it's good that you know what they are. By the way, you can all put your hands down, just so you know. Now that you know what some of those stumbling blocks are, hopefully you can be thinking through how you're going to be prepared to navigate those with your consortia. Next slide, please, Veronica. All right, so as you know, those of you that have gone through this 3-year planning in the past, It's really meant to be inclusive and collaborative among everyone that is providing education and workforce services for adults in your region. So that means collaborating with or getting input from your local workforce development board or other organizations in your area, perhaps your libraries, as we've heard earlier, with their literacy programs or their ASE programs, or other providers of adult education programs, community-based organizations that could be WIOA 2 funded, that are in your area. You want to make sure that you're all working together. Now they may or may not be a participant within your consortia, but you do want to know what those agencies are offering and what their program offerings are. But you do want to be collaborating with your workforce development board, that's for sure. Next slide. All right, so when you're looking at your plan, right, this is just going to be high level today, much deeper dives the rest of this week. So you really want to look at data. You want everyone to contribute their data. You want to consider, as I just said, input from some other agencies within your area. So for example, if your library is doing some literacy programs, what levels are they offering? And how can you ask them for some of their data? And how can you talk to them about transitioning students from perhaps their agency into one in the consortia? You want to look at, as I just said, the current levels and types of education and workforce services in your region. And then you want to look at all of the funds that are available to your consortium members. So that's sort of this whole piece of data. And those are all of the pieces of data that you'll want to be looking at. Next slide. And then you're going to want to do some goal setting. So for those of you that have WIOA Title II funding, and you have agencies within your consortium that have WIOA Title II funding, they all just went through a continuous improvement plan. And they've set goals for the next year, not for 3 years, but at least for the next year. And they've already done some of this work. So I would encourage you to have those agencies bring their continuous improvement plan to one of your planning sessions to talk about what the goals are that are in that continuous improvement plan, because the thought behind that was that that goal setting process could then marry into this 3-year planning process that you're going to be going through. So you want to look at making sure that you're addressing the educational needs in your community, that you want to be looking at improving member effectiveness, improving integration of services, and certainly improving transitions into post-secondary education and the workforce. So those are all very important pieces that you want to make sure when you're looking at goal setting that you're doing. Next slide, please. So this plan needs to be a guide, right? It's something that is not going to just sit on the shelf and not ever be looked at. It should be something that is brought, that is part of your agendas at your meetings, that you are evaluating how you are doing along the continuum of your 3-year plan. And while it's a requirement in Ed Code, really the intended audience is for your consortium members and for all of you. And it should be your driving force for the next 3 years. And with those annual updates that you're doing every year. Next slide. So this is in, I'm going to hope that I'm going to say this right. This is the template that you can use. You're going to be putting all of this into Nova, correct, Veronica?
That's correct. The
you.
template will be released during the 1st or 2nd week of October.
Okay. So you'll have a template, and that's what this is going to show. So you can look at that. The next slide, please. again, this is the whole 3-year planning guidance document. And we went through this at a webinar earlier this year. And I don't know, when was that, Veronica? July?
No, it was in the
August?
end of August, August
Oh, gosh.
26th, I believe.
Oh my gosh. Okay, time's flying. So felt like it was longer ago. So we have a webinar that I'm not sure that it's been remediated yet, that you can go back and look at, and you can see this whole guidance document. And it provided links, it provided suggestions on data elements that you should be looking at, and resources. Next slide. So let's do a little bit of a walkthrough on the 3-year plan. Next slide. Oh, do you want to pull up the guidance document? Oh, here we go. This is what I wanted. Thank you so much, Veronica. So I love this. I love this visual. This is such a great graphic organizer. And so when you're talking 3 years, it's really hard to believe that, you know, we're talking 2022 through 2025, right? I mean, just amazing to me that we're thinking of these years, right? So you want to have a couple of different objectives in your 3-year plan. You want to look at how you can assess the impact of services that you're going to provide, that you provided over the last 3 years, right? So when you're doing your planning, and I know we've talked about this in we talked about this at the training the end of August, that it's a look back, right? What did you do in your last 3-year plan, and what did you accomplish, and what do you need to still work on that you might not have accomplished, or some of those might not even be the direction you need to go now because of COVID. So you want to work on then defining strategies and activities that are going to meet the needs of your students, and then identify educational workforce needs within your consortium. And so this great graphic, and I saw that Veronica dropped it into the chat, is that in your first year of the 3-year plan, July 1, 2022, you're going to start implementation, and you're going to create annual plan strategies and identify plans of action to increase student outcomes. And then when we get to the last year, right, when we're looking at this as a continuum, we can look at where you really want to do an evaluation of the outcomes of your last 2 years. But this should be an ongoing evaluation, right? You shouldn't just wait until 24, 25 to do that evaluation. And that is part of your annual updates that you're doing. And you're going to, again, generate annual plan strategies, identify plans of action, and you're going to be getting ready to do the next 3-year plan. Wonder how many of us will be here for the 2025 to 28 plan. So I see Kelly. Kelly, you're like front and center on my little Zoom screen here. And I'm loving your expressions. So anyway, this is a great graphic. I would just, if I were you, I would take this and print it out and pass it out to all of your consortium members, or email to all of them, and recommend they hang it up in their offices, because it's really a great document. So Veronica, can we, do you want to go to the whole 3-year plan guidance document? Okay. So, this document is 30 pages long. It's a lot in here, a lot of information in here. And I'm going to ask Veronica just to sort of slowly scroll down, because a lot of what I talked about is in the beginning of this document. But it talks about the various sections that you're going to need to be completing. And it goes through details in this guidance document about each section. And I think there's important pieces that will lend themselves to great dialogue in your consortium. And to me, what's interesting is how that dialogue has changed over the last 3 years, especially because of COVID. And I think especially in section 3, when we're looking at metrics and you're identifying barriers that students are having. And certainly one of the barriers that we're seeing now, and we will probably continue to see for quite some time, is COVID is a barrier. As many of you said in the chat, that is a barrier for students to come back to in-person learning. So that's a barrier, but how could you turn that barrier into a positive by finding ways to offer more hybrid classes or flex classes? And Veronica is going to be putting some information in this week's newsletter from David Rosen, who's got a flex mode work group going, more of a community to talk about what does it look like to do like hybrid classes, and what do those look like. And so I would encourage you to consider looking at some of the resources that he has and considering joining that group, at least for a little while, to see what that means. And I also think about, you know, our students that have barriers to childcare. So they may have childcare, but then their child is sick and they can't go to childcare and they're not able to attend class. But wouldn't it be great if they could just email the teacher and say, I can't come to class today. And the teacher says, no problem, I'll put on the Zoom and you can join us by Zoom, right? So that student isn't then missing out. And I believe that if we're able to adapt to our students, then and our students' needs, then we're going to see increased persistence over this time. And the other piece of data that I think would be interesting to look at, and I don't know that we talked about it in this, but if you're able to go back and see some of your data metrics to find out when your students were accessing online instruction. What I've heard from different agencies, of course, this is all anecdotal, but that we had students accessing recorded classes at 10 in the evening, 3 in the morning, 7 in the morning, 8 o'clock at night, when classes weren't happening, but when they were able to access those classes. And so that, I think, is another data metric that we didn't add into this plan, but that could be a piece that you want to look at as well. So if you can scroll down a little more. All right, so let's just talk really quickly about timeline. If you can stop right there. So your plan is due June 20th. Okay, it needs to be submitted and approved by your member representatives in NOVA no later than June 20th. Okay, circle that date on your calendars. All right, keep going down, Veronica. You can keep going through this section. Everyone knows those pieces. You all know how to put your consortia details in. I mean, that's really the first section. It's all of the information about your consortia. And then you can see we have these great tables in each one of these sections. And these tables give you some guiding questions to walk through with your consortia, and then some data sources and other resources that you might use. So again, this is a very useful document for you as the director in your consortium. You can keep scrolling. Keep going. Again, so each section is set up in the same manner with guiding questions and data resources. So you can skip a little bit faster if you want. Then here's barriers and metrics. So looking at what the barriers are that your students have. Keep going. And then, okay, stop here. Veronica, thanks. Okay, so then section 4 is really your objectives. And this is where you're going to describe strategies that the members of the consortium and others that they're interested in looking at. So addressing educational needs, improving integration of services and transition, or improving effectiveness of services. So those are, then we have each one of those objectives is then listed. And if you want definitions of those, you can click on the little blue link where it says click here. If you wanted to find out more definitions and resources. So if you can go further down now, Veronica. And again, for each one of these, there's guiding questions and resources. And then, you know, the guiding questions for the next section, the next objective, and then the final objective, improve effectiveness of services. Note that you don't need to be writing a novel. You'll note here, it says improve effectiveness of services up to 2,500 characters. So that includes spaces and punctuation. So again, this isn't a document. You know, you want this document to be a living document, so it can't be too cumbersome for your consortium. Okay, keep on going down, Veronica. Keep going. And then here on this page, you're going to look at some short-term, immediate, and long-term outcomes. And then section 6 is all about funds evaluation and what funds everyone is able to access. Again, guiding questions in this area. And then you're going to preview your work and you're going to submit it. And then I think the rest of this document is just really the appendix, and it's all different resources for you. So I saw that the link had been put into the chat for this, and I would encourage you to, if you haven't already gotten this and started perusing it and laying out a plan of action on how you're going to tackle 3-year planning with your consortium. So Veronica, can we switch back to the PowerPoint? And let's go on to the next slide. So last week there was a CAEP program evaluation. I'm not sure how many of you attended that one. And here you are today at our welcome. Tomorrow there is a CASAS program evaluation. That's going to be by the CASAS team. And then on Wednesday is the WestEd program evaluation. Again, these are all noon till 1:30. Next slide. And then we have goal setting and targets. That's on Friday. Also on Friday, Friday's a long day. So two different sessions that day, community asset mapping. And then we jump to some of these sessions that are then outside of this week of directors meetings is logic modeling, and then in October is the 3-year plan in NOVA. And that's where you'll get to see Veronica, I'm assuming, walk you through the 3-year plan and how it's programmed into NOVA. Okay, next slide. And on these, you see all the links to register. It's all the same link. So as Veronica said at the beginning, just remember that all of those links are individual, so you need to register for those individually. And Mandalee is putting all of that into the chat. Next slide. Okay, so what questions might you have for us? And I think what we can do, Veronica, you could stop sharing. All right, it might be easier if you raise your hand if you have a question. And I'm going to quickly go through my 3 pages of all of you. See, Christian, why don't you come off mute and ask your question?
All right, so I know the governor let the Brown Act stuff lapse, and as of October 1st, anytime a consortium meeting happens, it's supposed to happen face-to-face and no longer online. Do 3-year plan meetings require that, or is that just whenever we are voting that the Brown Act comes into play, so we can meet kind of whenever we want online and we don't have to have it as a face-to-face meeting?
That's a really good question, Christian. I don't know if I know the answer to that. Gary, do you happen to know? Well, I can talk about the governor. I know that there was legislation, and we put that information in the newsletter to extend the Brown Act, and the governor he has until October 10th to sign that. And there was information in the newsletter that talked about how if you still need to meet online because of COVID in your area, what you need to do, which pretty much means you need to post signs at your places of residence. John just said, oh, it was signed on the 16th. So John, can you come off of mute and share a little bit more about that?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, so I just got notification from our college president that that assembly bill was signed. It's an emergency bill, so it's effective immediately and will be effective through January 1, 2024. I believe I got the month correct, but 2024. So we have a few minutes to figure out if it's January 1 or January 31 anyway. And there are some special considerations in that. The link I provided is kind of the layman's version of the legislation to help with ease of reading. One of the things we're going to plan on then as a local consortium is voting every 30 days or within every 30 days to continue those virtual meetings. It'll become a standing action item for us. And as you read through the document, the blog, and then read the legislation itself, you'll see where that comes from. And then the question as far as do we have to follow Brown Act for every consortium meeting? I'm not technical assistance here, so give me a John, be quiet if I'm speaking out of turn. But my understanding and the way we have been operating and the way I tell everyone in the state to operate is, and I believe according to correct guidance, is every single consortium board meeting is in fact Brown Act compliant. You must post public notification. You got to follow the rules for that.
So
that is correct. Any public meeting has to follow those Brown Act guidelines.
Even your plan, so Christian, even your planning meetings, I remember attending school board planning meetings, and it's just the board is doing their own conversations, but the public is able to sit there and watch them have their conversations. So, and there's usually a moment in there for public comment. Yeah.
The rule that we follow locally out of the League of Cities guidance is when 2 or more gather in the name of, it is the name of, and so therefore you must follow all the rules.
Carolyn, this is Marianne, and if I may, the assembly bill that was signed, it's important that everybody really takes a good look at that, because when I read it, while it does allow for virtual meetings, it's no different than the typical Brown Act. So it doesn't really work for us because you have to post every single location in the agenda that you post 72 hours prior to the meeting. You have to also post every location that is being used as a virtual location. So if I'm taking the call from home, basically my address would have to be posted. And if any public person wants to attend the meeting from any of those locations, they can. What the purpose of the assembly bill was to allow for the public to come in and do an in-person public comment if they so wanted to. So for example, a city council who's doing their meetings videotaped, so the city council is coming together. It's not open to the public, but they're allowing it through Zoom, and they're videotaping it, and it's being televised at the same time. Then someone from the public has a right to attend that meeting in person and provide their public comment. So that was the purpose of that assembly bill, but it's really important that everybody take a look at what's allowed under virtual, because that is not different than what is typically allowed under Brown Act. And it's very, very restrictive. So that doesn't really work for us because we don't want to post our addresses on the agenda. However, having said all of that, we also have to take into consideration what our local government is allowing and what the restrictions are. So for example, for us, the city of Glendale does not allow public meetings at this time because of the spike. So we have to follow the local jurisdiction and the local governance. And so we're not allowed to have those public meetings. So we must continue with virtual. Anyway, I hope that helps.
And John's been furiously typing. And he said that according to this, and I'm going to go back and read the bill, but it says that agendas need not be posted at all teleconference locations. Each teleconference location need not be identified in the notice and agenda of the meeting. So it sounds like there might be conflicting information. So I will go back and read that, and I know Gary will as well. We'll read that and make sure that we can get something out through the newsletter to everyone. Okay. Christian, thanks for your question, because that was very important for everyone to have that conversation. And thanks, Marianne and John, for your input, and Gary as well.
Yeah, if John, if you get any other information about that, please let me know, because that is the one thing that's making it so restrictive. The actual assembly bill does state specifically that all locations need to be posted, as does the Brown Act.
Well, we'll, between Carolyn and I'm certainly going to consult my general counsel, and then we'll get back to you with some judgment on legal interpretation of AB 361.
All right, other questions? All right, you guys must all be ready to do this 3-year planning.
Or, Carolyn, it's that you ran through the deck so well. One of the two.
Yeah, I don't see any other questions, but I think Christian's was very relevant, and so that was great.
Yes.
All right, so Veronica, I'm going to turn this over to you.
All
Oh,
right.
wait, Kelly has a question.
I'm
One second.
sorry, I'm not fast enough with my unmute. I'm just wondering, and if I've missed this, then please forgive me, but are there going to be any state like data focused groups like what we did? I feel like it was like last year and the year before, we did a bunch of stuff on the launch board with West Ed and Randy Tillery. Is there going to be anything like that that we're going to be doing as a state or regionally to make sure that we're using the information that's in the launch board?
Yes, thanks for raising that, Kelly. We will build into the West Ed contract launch board facilitation. And we'll have other data experts at that meeting. And I'm sure it will be something that we'll plan with Carolyn and Veronica. So thank you for raising that, Kelly.
Okay, Veronica.
All right, thank you. And there's also another question from Marina. Is there a listserv for CAP directors coming together? Marina, I'm not too sure what you mean by that.
I think I can interpret that. I think what she means is there a listserv that would be like a listserv email,
A directory.
or a where we would do email blasts to.
Oh, yes, that's what we use when we send direct communication to our consortia leads.
And so it's just everyone who's on here. Marina, did that answer your question?
Yes, my question is whether we would have a two-way access to that. So as directors, we can post questions to the group.
Oh, more like a forum.
Right. I think it's managed via like a listserv, but if, however it's managed, but it would allow us as directors to communicate with each other, post our questions, learn from each other.
I think that's an excellent idea. I'm sorry, Carolyn.
Well, I was going to say, I think we had something started, a Google group.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, it wasn't utilized as much, but if the field wants us to kind of revamp that and relaunch it, that's something that we can definitely consider doing.
And maybe it's a good time. Oh, sorry, Gary. I was going to say, maybe it's a good time now with this 3-year planning starting to relaunch it.
Yes, I agree, Carolyn. Veronica, I think we should put that on our list of.
Okay, I've made note of it.
Okay. All right.
All right, so I'm not seeing any other questions that have come up, but as Carolyn mentioned, we have the rest of our directors events as well as our 3-year plan sessions that will be held through the first week of October. And so you all have the URLs to register for those individual events. And again, you'll receive individual Zoom links for each of those events. And then we will pick up with the remaining 3-year planning sessions. We're planning to send, a communication with all of the materials that have been shared up until this point. As I mentioned before, we do not have the recordings as of yet, but as soon as they are made available, we'll be sure to send those out to you all as well. You all should have received communication about registration being open for the CAEP Summit 2021. And so that will take place on October 26th through October 28th. So if you have not registered for that, we will put the link in the chat to register for the upcoming CAEP Summit. Please share that with colleagues. It is a free event. It's a 3-day event. We have scheduled 60 sessions with our plenary session as well as our networking event. So if you have not registered, please be sure to register. And Kelly, I see your question. Are all the sessions on the website? No, the sessions are not on the website as of yet. We're still collecting pieces of information from our presenters. So the plan is to post the sessions we'll send the sessions to all who have registered, the session schedule, send the session schedule to all who have registered 1 week prior to the start of the event. So I believe that Monday is October 17th or 18th or something. So we plan to send the session schedule so that you all have hopefully adequate time to be able to plan your attendance to the CAEP Summit. For those of you who may have submitted a proposal, we did experience some technical issues. So if for any reason you did not receive any communication from us regarding the proposal you submitted, please be sure to send an email to tap@caledoed.org and we'll look into your session submittal status. So that is all that I have. in terms of closing. Oh, and we will send an evaluation for each of the sessions. Please be sure to let us know, especially as we are thinking about different opportunities for what we can provide past what we have planned to support the 3-year plan. So if there are other opportunities for us to continue the process of learning or even help you all with preparing for the 3-year plan and submitting it, those evaluations is a critical piece for us to evaluate how we can best support you. So please be sure to complete the evaluations as you receive them. So if there are no further questions or anything else, I will prepare to close the room. All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you, Gary, and thank you, Carolyn, for presenting for us today in this welcome event. And we hope to see everyone tomorrow during the CASAS program evaluation session. Wednesday, we have WestEd. All right, thank you, everyone, and have a great day.